Hello everyone, today Steve and I are going to discuss the Model 3 Challenge that is by Mountain Pass Performance and Chris Hatch. So big shout out. I think Chris is really the guy who's...
Yeah, Chris is the man behind the show.
The man behind the show.
And Mountain Pass is...
Collaborating.
They're supporting the project.
Supporting the project, yes, okay. So, this is a really intriguing event. I know that something the guys and I have discussed for a long time is having something resembling a spec series for Tesla. And I think one of the reasons that appeals to me the most is because, for the past 25 years, we've only been a chassis company, suspension, footwork tuning, suspension, tires, wheels, and brakes. We never got into building motors or turbos or any of that type of thing, and that's why the Tesla platform really works for us as a company and our business model so well. And because you can't really modify power too much, I mean, there are some things, but for all intents and purposes, let's say in a Model 3 Performance, you're not really doing, boost mods or anything like that.
Yeah, aside from tearing down the car and making it into a race car, there's not a lot you can do to a Model 3 Performance to make it faster in a straight line.
Right. So what we're focusing on is suspension, chassis dynamics, driver skill.
Right.
And I think all of those things married together just make for an ideal candidate for some type of a spec race.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to go buy a Model 3 and do the limited mods for the challenge. You don't have to do a lot to be competitive with the way the rules are set up. So it's pretty easy for anyone to enter. Yeah.
So it was pretty exciting for us that Chris and the Mountain Pass guys put this Model 3 Challenge together. I think there was there's a learning curve to it, in the beginning for them because this is their inaugural year.
Yeah, so I'm sure the rules are going to
evolve.
They're going to change as we go, especially as more competitors
join in.
That maybe we can tighten down some of the rules more to make it more competitive. Right now, they're pretty loose just to make sure that we can get as many people as we can to join. Like tires, the tire is spec to 200 tread wear, but if you are in the track world, every 200 tread wear is completely different.
Right. Yep.
So there's lots of variation on tire. So that would probably be one of the coolest things that will be changed moving forward, hopefully. But
yep, I think we're gonna have to find a tire sponsor to sign on to the
awesome.
challenge.
That would be awesome.
I think that that would be something that would really pave that path. And again, I think that's for another topic, but there's a lot of opportunities. This is just a catalyst for what might come.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely stay focused on the Model 3 Challenge. I think the purpose of this video is really for Steven to help educate us on what the challenge is. He did complete his first event in the Model 3 Challenge at Streets of Willow. I think prior to this, so there's only one event left at Laguna Seca.
Right.
I don't recall how many there were in total. Was it like 4 or 5?
This year they started 3 events. So there was Lime Rock, which was like the starting event.
Right.
And Streets of Willow. And
there's only 3 events total.
3 events, that's it.
Oh, okay. So they did Lime Rock.
And we just did Streets of Willow.
Just finished Streets of Willow. And the rule book is lengthy-ish. I'll put a link in the description below.
I mean, as far as spec series go, the rules are, it looks normal.
I'm just lazy. I didn't read it yet, so I figure we'll just have Steven tell us, for all of us who don't like to read. I'm going to start off with kind of the opening page on the Model 3 Challenge rule book. Y'all don't know I'm in my late 40s, but I look young. But I need glasses to read. So, Model 3 Challenge, intent. Okay, so I'm going to read this to you guys. The Model 3 Challenge is a series intended to make EV racing accessible and viable within the grassroots motorsport community. This series utilizes a highly capable chassis using a regulated car configuration to emphasize driver skill and reduce costs. In our experience, most drivers who want to race competitively want to know that they have similar equipment as everyone else and leave the racing down to the drivers. Additionally, this series is focused on the advancement of electric vehicles and their penetration into motorsports. That is our motto, electrifying motorsports at ZEV-Centric. So on that note, we emphasize safety and respect between all competitors. These are the goals of this series. The series will utilize a unique approach to timing and scoring, which will ensure exciting and close competition between drivers while keeping the vehicles viable for street use and ensure a safe on-track environment. In addition, vehicles will be run with limited power to ensure that all Model 3 configurations are competitive and that extended duration races can be done without significant power reduction. So there you go. That's the basic synopsis and premise for the Model 3 Challenge. They did touch upon a couple things that Stephen will kind of build out on. Power reduction. Let's talk about some of the parts.
Yep.
Maybe some of a basic rundown on the points thing, how the points work, because it's not based off of time.
Right.
So what should we start with? Let's start with power reduction. Maybe
I think the power reduction is probably the single biggest thing that's different than running your Tesla at a track day or a normal time attack event. Traditionally, the car out of the box has, 450 to 500 horsepower, give or take. Depending on how fast you're going, it's a little bit different. The bad thing about that is you can only do 1, 2, or 3 laps, depending on the track, before you see significant power reduction due to temperatures, which isn't great for a racing series that you're trying to do a whole 15-minute session. That means just everyone's going to go fast at the beginning and slow down at the end. That's not really that fun. So what they did with the cooling party box, Mountain Pass Performance, they have integrated it into the CAN bus of the car to limit the amount of power that comes out of the battery pack. So we're limited to 220 kilowatts, which is right around 300 horsepower. And that allows us to run a whole 15-minute session. So now we can do a 15-minute race with very consistent lap times throughout the race.
So don't have to worry about pack getting red hot.
No.
Don't got to worry about drive units.
Even after our 15-minute sessions, the packs are still not, glowing red like they would be, on the screen after a traditional track day.
I mean, some of the other benefits would be to the consumables too, right?
Yeah,
it helps on the tires.
Well,
no?
Depends how you look at it. If you're only going
because you're running more laps
Yeah.
too. Right?
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Understood. It's
Yeah.
all relative.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's power.
If you're always doing 15-minute sessions no matter what, then yes, it would be less on consumables.
Got it. Yep. But 9 laps versus 2 hot laps if you have full power.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Modifications.
So rules dictate that you have to run the cooling party box, obviously. That way everyone can be at the same power level. And so the car's restricted just via, it's activated by going to creep mode on the car. So, before our sessions, Chris would go by and make sure everyone's in creep mode before going out on track. So no one's taking off, at a much faster rate of speed.
Right.
So everyone has a cooling party box and then either stock suspension.
So that's compulsory.
Yeah.
So the CPC is the one required modification so that they can limit the power.
Right. That's
to get everybody on level playing field. One major argument to that is like guys who are in a rear-wheel drive or SR Plus or whatever, they want to be able to compete in the pack with these dual motor vehicles.
Yeah. And actually, to your point there, the rear-wheel drive is actually limited more than that because they have a weight advantage as well. So they are, I think, 400 to 500 pounds lighter.
Yeah, the older SR Plus with the older battery chem is probably 300 to 400 pounds. But
I don't think
LFP is.
That's probably one of the things that will change moving forward rule-wise. They probably haven't figured out exactly what is the most fair in terms of power for those rear-wheel drive models.
I mean, it sounded like, well, we'll get into that, but I mean, they could always just add weight to these vehicles.
They could add weight, but still, there's a lot of variation. We've only done it twice now, so
right.
There's lots to learn still.
So that's CPC, okay, the one required mod. Level the playing field, dual motors,
right,
rear-wheel drive cars, all in the same pack. There's no handicaps, I don't believe, right, for having a rear-wheel drive vehicle or whatever.
There is some handicaps, but not related to that. But going into the mods thing,
the mods.
If you want to be competitive, the biggest things you would need to have would be the Mountain Pass coilovers, either the Sport or Super Sport springs are both legal, and then adjustable camber as well. Like, so you're probably going to want rear camber arms and the front upper control arms to adjust for, you know, a proper track alignment.
So as a spec, as a semi-spec challenge, you only have two options for suspension. So just to make that clear.
Yeah, it's either stock
you
or
can go
the Mountain
OEM,
Pass. Yeah.
or you go Mountain Pass. So this event is, you know, supported by Mountain Pass. They're, you know,
Yeah, and
building this challenge. So
you know, we have seen some people complain about that, but if you look at almost any other spec racing series out there, they're all running one suspension brand and one model of coilover. So this is not abnormal in any way.
at all. Yep. So you either join the program or don't compete. It's up to you.
And in my opinion, this is one of the best coilovers you could have anyway, so I don't see why anybody wouldn't want to.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that before. I have the sports adjustables on my car. Steven started out with sports adjustables. He's got super sport springs now. He daily drives that car like freaking 160, 170 miles a day.
Yeah.
So again, that's for another video. But yeah, it's a great product, and it can compete at a very high level.
Yeah.
As Steven himself has proven.
Yeah, you know, with the tires we're running, it's completely capable for that.
Yep.
Especially the Super Sport spring is definitely an added upgrade, just a little bit more spring rate for that sticky compound, and it works great.
So you got that. So suspension, you can either go OEM or Mountain Pass coilovers. I don't think there's really a lot of other.
There is a restriction on the front upper control arm. The front, so the arm above the tire here needs to either be stock or the Mountain Pass.
Okay.
Fuka. Every other alignment component can be any other brand. There is a specific reason about that. I'm not going to go into it, but for on-track safety and just to know all the cars are going to be safe, Mountain Pass wanted to make sure that arm specifically was used, either stock or Mountain Pass.
I think that's kind of cool too, because of the fact that with that front upper control arm, the way that, well, it also limits how much camber you can run to an extent. I mean, it's a shim stack.
That wasn't the intent.
Yeah, I don't think.
The intent wasn't to limit camber. It was to make sure all the cars were safe on track.
But brakes is open.
Brakes are open.
You've got AP brakes. You're not running the MPP Stop Tech kit.
Yeah.
So that's pretty open. I think really that the only thing is the coilovers, the suspension, and the upper control arm. But you can run all stock. You could run completely stock. We have some buddies that are fast stock.
Yeah.
Steven has a good friend. He has two friends that are quite fast. In fact, one of them was at the event, but he didn't compete in the challenge.
Yeah.
He had gone to run Grid Life with, I think, another vehicle of his, RX-7 or something like that, maybe, right? I would have loved to have seen him run that event.
It was pretty cool. Because
that's his home track, too.
Yeah.
And again, our friend Tom, I'd have given Tom my coilovers to just run the dang race, but he races a spec Boxster. And so a lot of our buddies they're kind of focused on some other things right now.
But to get back to the parts too, like I do think to be competitive at the high level, you do need to have the coilover, you do need to have the camber adjustment, and the brakes. I believe you would at least need a two-piece rotor upgrade for the
shed the heat
or brand new OEM rotors, because I think by the end of the event on OEM rotors, they would be toast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't even think they'd make it to the second day.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was on OEM rotors.
I remember when you warped your OEMs, and you weren't even fast yet, but you did run them for a long time.
Yeah, they wouldn't last that event. There's no way.
So we highly recommend brakes, safety first,
Yeah,
but it is open.
yeah.
It's
You
open.
could run a very aggressive high temp pad and just completely destroy your OEM rotors in one, event. That's an option. But a two-piece rotor. Lots of people are on two-piece rotor with the stock caliper. There's no. I don't think there's a reason to have an entire upgraded
Big brake
BB
kit,
cake.
right,
That's a huge expense.
Um,
But you're just talking coilovers, camber arms. You could be into it just a couple $1,000s extra on top of the car and have a very competitive car.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and you started there. You've shown that. So there's a huge evolution to Steven's kind of participation in motorsports with Tesla. So, okay, so that's kind of some of the mods. And again, we're going to link to their rule book in our description below. So if you guys want to read up more in depth, you can do that. So guys, that concludes part 1 of our introduction to the Model 3 Challenge. Stay tuned for part 2. We'll release that after the Laguna Seca event on October 20th and 21st, where we'll get more in depth in the structure, the point system, and how to win at the challenge. And if we're lucky and things work out at the Laguna event, we'll have some interviews with some very special guests. So don't forget to hit that notifications bell. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. We really would appreciate it if you'd share all of our videos and our channel with your friends that are getting into the EV space or want to move into motorsports from ICE vehicles. There's a lot to it. A lot of people don't appreciate it yet, but we're hoping that our fans and guys like us who have already made that transition can really start helping others see the light. So let's check out some footage of the Model 3 Challenge at the Streets of Willow event that we just finished. I hope you guys can appreciate some of the B-roll that Tim shot, and we'll catch you on part 2, guys. See you next time.